I arrived at an old resort in Spain, a sprawling estate long forgotten by time and tourists. This place had been the crown jewel of holiday getaways in the 80s, but now it lay like a relic against the coast. This one hotel was rumoured to be haunted, and I had come to capture it in its bleakest form. I parked a short distance away, grabbed my camera and walked toward the hotel. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay, and the building loomed ominously in front of me, its windows dark and yawning. Perfect. I entered through the main doors, or what was left of them. Splintered wood and broken glass. The hotel lobby was a scene of eerie desolation, with furniture covered in dust and a grand chandelier hanging precariously, casting faint shadows across the floor. I started snapping shots of the lobby, marvelling at the haunting beauty of the decay. Every click of the shutter echoed in the empty space, making me acutely aware of how silent the place was. I ventured further down a hallway, the shadows swallowing me with every step. The walls were peeling, the carpet rotten, and the air was stale. It was then I felt it, a feeling as if someone was watching me. I stopped, letting the silence settle around me, listening for anything out of place. Shaking off the feeling, I kept moving, taking pictures of whatever caught my eye. The place was a labyrinth of forgotten memories. Turning down another dark corridor, I noticed something at the end. The door was slightly ajar, and there, just barely visible, was a figure peeking out, shrouded in shadow. I froze, my heart thudding in my chest. I could only make out the silhouette, but I could feel its gaze on me, sharp and unyielding. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. The figure didn't move, just watched. I took a cautious step back, and as I did, the door creaked, slowly closing. My blood went cold. I turned on my heel, walking back the way I came, my footsteps echoing unnervingly loud. I thought maybe I was overreacting, that it was just my overactive imagination, but every so often I'd hear a faint shuffling behind me. Snap out of it, I told myself. But the silence grew heavier, more oppressive. As I turned a corner, I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. I spun around, but there was nothing. The corridor was empty, stretching into darkness. I continued faster now, glancing over my shoulder every few steps. Just when I thought I'd left it behind, I heard something faint, the sound of breathing. I whipped around, and there it was again, that figure. It was peering around the edge of a doorway, watching me. My heart hammered, and instinctively, I raised my camera, snapping a photo. The flash illuminated the hallway for a split second, revealing nothing. But when my eyes adjusted back to the darkness, the figure was gone. The air felt suffocating, thick with something unseen but present. I tried to keep my focus, retracing my steps to the lobby, but every corner I turned, I had the sickening feeling that something was lurking, waiting for me just out of sight. The figure seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once, a dark shape darting around corners, peering from shadows, always keeping its distance but always watching. Finally, I could take it no longer. I broke into a run, my camera swinging wildly at my side. I didn't care about the photos anymore, I just wanted to get out. Every step I took, I heard the faint sound of footsteps behind me, like an echo, keeping pace. My breath came in gasps, and the world around me felt like it was closing in, the walls narrowing and the hallways stretching endlessly. I burst back into the lobby, nearly slipping on the dust-covered tiles. Ahead of me was the exit, and beyond that, the grey daylight, salvation from this claustrophobic nightmare. I sprinted toward it, and just as I reached the doorway, I felt a presence behind me. I dared one last glance back. The figure stood there in the lobby, framed by shadows, still as a statue, its face obscured by darkness. For a second I thought it might follow me out, but it didn't move. It just watched as I stumbled out into the open air, the cool breeze hitting my face. I didn't stop until I was at my car, slamming the door shut and locking it, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling of those eyes on me. The figure had been real, of that I was certain. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see it standing on the roadside watching me leave. But the road remained empty. After calming down, I told a local about my experience. They chuckled darkly, and they said that the place was known to be haunted, but not by ghosts. People had seen strange figures in the windows and heard whispers echoing through the halls. They suspected it was homeless people taking shelter. I realized then I was an intruder, and the homeless person wanted to frighten me away. I loved exploring abandoned places, snapping photos that captured the decay, the mystery, the forgotten stories hidden in the overgrown weeds and crumbling walls. That's why, when my friend first suggested Spree Park, I didn't hesitate. The abandoned dinosaur-themed amusement park, closed since 2002, was infamous among photographers and urban explorers. We set off early, backpacks full of camera gear and snacks, sneaking through a gap in the rusted chain-link fence as quietly as possible. Once we were inside, the park felt surreal. Everywhere we looked, there were broken-down rides, dinosaur statues with chipped paint, vines creeping over once bright signs. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive, as if the park itself was holding its breath. I felt a thrill and a little pang of unease. The place felt empty, but there was a feeling, a sensation of something just out of sight. My friend's camera was clicking away, capturing every eerie shadow, every inch of rusted metal. We edged closer to the roller coaster, snapping photos of the tunnel, the tracks stretching into the shadows. Then, as I was framing a shot, I heard something. A shuffling noise, faint but unmistakable. I froze, looking at her, hoping she'd heard it too. She was still focused on her shot, unfazed. I took a step back, and that's when he appeared. The man stepped out of the shadows, his silhouette sharp against the darkness of the tunnel. He looked like he was in his 50s, dressed in a worn-out jacket, his grey hair sticking out at odd angles. His face had this strange look, like he was trying to decide if he should smile or sneer. "You girls here for the photos, huh?" he asked, his voice gravelly, rough around the edges. I felt my friend tense up beside me. "Yeah, just taking some pictures," she replied, her voice steady but wary. "Thought the place was empty." "Most of the time it is," he said, his gaze lingering on us for just a little too long. "Strange place, though. Attracts all kinds of people." I could feel my pulse quicken. I didn't want to turn my back on him, but everything in me screamed to get out of there. "We're fine, thanks," I managed to say. Though my voice came out a little shaky, he tilted his head, studying me with an unsettling intensity. "You sure?" He gestured vaguely toward the entrance. "I could give you both a lift back to town. My car's just outside the gate." My friend shook her head. "Thanks, but we're good. We know our way out." The man's expression changed, his eyes narrowing. "You sure?" he pressed, his voice losing that hint of friendliness. "Might be safer to stick together. You don't know who's hanging around in places like these." I felt my skin prickle, a strange mix of fear and anger bubbling up. "We're fine," I insisted, my voice firmer this time. But the look in his eyes, the way he was staring at us, was unnerving. He took another step toward us, his gaze dark and unyielding. My heart pounded, my palms slick with sweat. I could feel my friend tense beside me, her shoulders rigid. We were both rooted in place. "Come on, I'm trying to help," he muttered. "Just a quick ride." I opened my mouth to say something, anything to get him to leave us alone. But then, as if by some miracle, a voice called out from behind us. "Is everything okay?" We turned to see two men with dogs approaching from the path behind us. They looked to be in their late 20s, each holding onto leashes with dogs pulling eagerly at their sides. Relief washed over me like a wave. The strange man froze, his gaze darting from us to the dog walkers, his face twisted into a crooked grin, but his eyes were cold, calculating. He looked back at us, a glint of something cruel in his eyes. "Lucky," he muttered, the word dripping with contempt. He turned without another word, retreating into the shadows of the tunnel, disappearing as quickly as he'd appeared. I let out a shaky breath, realizing only then how tense I'd been. The dog walkers came closer, their eyes scanning us with concern. "Are you both all right?" one of them asked. My friend nodded, though her voice trembled slightly. "Yeah, thanks for stepping in. Creeps like that show up in places like these," one of the men said, shaking his head. "It's not safe around here, especially with the park abandoned like this. We'll walk you back to the gate, just to be safe." We didn't argue. We gladly followed them, our nerves slowly calming as we made our way back toward the entrance. The men kept a careful watch, their dogs occasionally sniffing at the overgrown grass and rusting carnival stalls. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the man watching us from the shadows, but he was nowhere to be seen. When we reached the gate, the dog walkers gave us reassuring nods. "Be careful, and maybe stick to busier spots next time," one of them said, his tone kind but firm. "Thanks. We really appreciate it," I replied, meaning every word. The rest of the walk to the train station was quiet. We were both lost in thought, the adrenaline slowly fading, replaced by an uneasy feeling that lingered even as we boarded the train back home. I couldn't shake the image of the man's face, that strange grin, and the way he'd muttered "lucky" before disappearing. When we got home, we reported it. We called the police, explaining the incident, describing the man as best we could. The officer on the line took down our report, though his tone was far from comforting. Abandoned places, like Spree Park, he explained, were notorious for attracting strange characters. Without any specific threat, there wasn't much they could do. For days after, I kept replaying the scene in my head, wondering if there was something we missed, some sign of danger we hadn't noticed, until it was too late. I still loved photography, still found myself drawn to the eerie beauty of abandoned places, but Spree Park had changed something in me. Sometimes I'd look through the photos we'd taken that day, flipping through images of faded dinosaurs and decaying rides, and every time I'd stop on one particular photo, the shot I'd taken of the roller coaster tunnel, right before the man had appeared. I couldn't help but wonder, had he been hiding in there, watching us from the darkness, waiting for the right moment to reveal himself? Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.